What happens when a scientist discovers a life form capable of rewriting genetic codes and realizes it's rewriting him? You won't believe how far he'll go to stop it or what price he'll pay in the process. The crimson sun hung low over the jagged mountains of Proxus, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. In a state-of-the-art research facility buried deep beneath the planet's surface, Dr. Michael Chun stared at the glowing vial in his hand. "What are you?" he whispered to himself, his voice trembling with both excitement and dread. This discovery could change everything, life as we know it, or destroy it entirely. Dr. Michael Chun had always been driven by an insatiable curiosity about life's origins. A geneticist known for groundbreaking work on Earth, he was chosen to lead the expedition to Proxus, a distant exoplanet shrouded in mystery. The mission seemed simple enough: catalog new forms of life, study their DNA, and determine if they posed any threat to humanity. But from the moment his boots touched the red soil, Michael sensed something extraordinary lurking beneath the surface. The air here was thick with static electricity, making every breath feel electric. Strange flora pulsed faintly in the dim light, their movements almost rhythmic, like breathing. As Michael walked through the alien forest, his scanner picked up anomalies, patterns that didn't match anything in the known universe. It wasn't until he reached the edge of a crystalline lake that he found it. A shimmering organism floating just below the water's surface, its form constantly shifting, defying logic. He couldn't believe what his instruments were telling him. This thing didn't have fixed DNA. It rewrote its own code every few seconds. Michael knelt by the lake, his gloved hands trembling as he collected a sample. The liquid felt warm against his fingers, almost alive. His mind raced with possibilities. What did this mean for biology? For evolution? Was this the missing link between organic and synthetic life? Or was it something far more dangerous? Back at the lab, Michael spent hours analyzing the sample. Under the microscope, the organism appeared to glow with an inner light, rearranging itself into impossible configurations. Every test yielded contradictory results. One moment it behaved like plant matter, the next like animal tissue, then something entirely unclassifiable. Michael knew he was witnessing something unprecedented. A life form capable of rewriting its own genetic code. But as fascinating as it was, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. There was something unsettling about the way the organism moved, as though it was aware of being observed. That night, as Michael reviewed his notes, he noticed something peculiar. The organism wasn't just rewriting its own DNA, it was influencing nearby samples. Bacteria exposed to even trace amounts of proteus began mutating rapidly, growing stronger, faster, and more aggressive. The implications were staggering. If this organism escaped, it could rewrite the genetic blueprint of every living thing it touched. Entire ecosystems would collapse, replaced by monstrous hybrids born of chaos. We only just began this story, but trust me, it's going to get much more intense. Stay tuned to see how far Dr. Chun will go when faced with forces beyond comprehension. Back at the lab, Michael isolated the organism in a containment chamber, dubbing it Proteus, after the shape-shifting sea god of myth. Proteus was unlike anything science had ever encountered. Under the microscope, its cells appeared to glow with an inner light, rearranging themselves into impossible configurations. Every test yielded contradictory results. One moment it behaved like plant matter, the next like animal tissue, then something entirely unclassifiable. But the real breakthrough came when Michael noticed something chilling. Proteus wasn't just rewriting its own genetic code, it was influencing nearby samples. Bacteria exposed to even trace amounts of proteus began mutating rapidly, growing stronger, faster, and more aggressive. The implications were staggering. If this organism escaped, It could rewrite the genetic blueprint of every living thing it touched. Entire ecosystems would collapse, replaced by monstrous hybrids born of chaos. Michael knew he should report his findings immediately, but doubt gnawed at him. What if the higher-ups decided to weaponize Proteus? Or worse, what if they tried to contain it without fully understanding its potential? For now, he kept working alone, documenting everything obsessively. Yet, late at night, as he watched the swirling mass of energy within the containment field, he couldn't shake the feeling that Proteus was watching him back. As days turned into weeks, Michael became increasingly obsessed with Proteus. He barely slept, subsisting on caffeine and adrenaline. His colleagues noticed the change in him, his once calm demeanor replaced by a frenetic intensity. Some advised caution, warning him not to push too far too fast. But Michael couldn't stop. He felt as though he was standing on the brink of a revelation that could redefine humanity's understanding of life itself. One evening, while reviewing data logs, Michael stumbled upon a pattern he hadn't noticed before. Proteus's genetic mutations weren't random. They followed a specific sequence, almost like a language. Could it be trying to communicate? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. If true, it meant Proteus wasn't just a mindless biological anomaly. It was intelligent. Driven by this possibility, Michael devised an experiment to test his theory. He introduced a series of stimuli, light, sound, electromagnetic pulses, into the containment chamber, observing how Proteus responded. To his astonishment, the organism reacted differently to each stimulus, its movements becoming more deliberate, almost calculated. It was as though it was learning. We're on the brink of something huge. What happens next will change everything. You can't afford to miss the unraveling of this mystery. It started subtly, a flicker in the power grid, a strange hum emanating from the containment unit. At first, Michael dismissed it as equipment malfunction. But then the lights began pulsing in sync with Proteus's movements, as though the creature was communicating through the very infrastructure of the lab. That's when things took a turn for the worse. One of the lab assistants, Sarah, accidentally spilled a petri dish containing a sample of Proteus-infused bacteria onto her skin. Within minutes, she doubled over in pain, clutching her arm as veins darkened and swelled beneath her flesh. By the time Michael rushed to help, her body was already changing. Her fingers elongated into claw-like appendages. Her eyes glowed with an eerie luminescence, and her screams turned into guttural growls. She lunged at him, feral and unrecognizable. Michael barely managed to subdue her, locking her in a secondary containment room. But the damage was done. Proteus wasn't content to stay confined, it wanted out, and it was willing to use human hosts to achieve its goal. Sarah's transformation was only the beginning. Over the next few hours, other team members who had come into contact with Proteus began exhibiting similar symptoms. Their bodies twisted into grotesque parodies of humanity, their minds consumed by primal instincts. The lab descended into chaos as mutated individuals attacked anyone in their path, spreading the infection further. Michael realized he was dealing with something far more dangerous than he had anticipated. Proteus wasn't just rewriting DNA, it was rewriting identity. Those infected lost all sense of self, becoming vessels for the organism's will. Watching his colleagues succumb to its influence filled Michael with a mixture of horror and guilt. He had brought them here, led them into this nightmare. Now he had to find a way to stop it. Desperate for answers, Michael delved deeper into Proteus's behavior. He discovered that the organism thrived on instability, feeding off fear and pain to accelerate its growth. The more it spread, the stronger it became. Containment was no longer an option. Unless Michael acted quickly, Proteus would consume the entire facility and everyone inside. The lab was supposed to be a fortress of safety, but Michael quickly realized how fragile that illusion truly was. Sarah's transformation had triggered a chain reaction. Her mutated body began emitting strange electromagnetic pulses, interfering with the lab's systems. Alarms blared as containment fields flickered and failed. Proteus, sensing an opportunity, surged against its own barriers, its glow intensifying with what could only be described as purpose. Michael scrambled to stabilize the situation, his hands flying over the control panel. But every solution seemed to unravel into new chaos. Backup generators sputtered under the strain, plunging parts of the facility into darkness. In the dim emergency lighting, shadows danced unnaturally on the walls, as if alive. The air grew heavy, charged with an energy that made the hairs on Michael's neck stand on end. Then came the sound, a low, guttural growl that echoed through the corridors. It wasn't just Sarah anymore. Other team members who had come into contact with Proteus were beginning to change. One by one, they succumbed to the organism's influence, their bodies twisting into grotesque parodies of humanity. Michael knew he couldn't save them all. His only hope now was to contain the outbreak before it spread beyond the lab. With shaking hands, he initiated Protocol Omega, the facility's self-destruct sequence. If he couldn't stop Proteus, he would bury it and himself under tons of alien rock. But as the countdown began, Michael realized something chilling. Proteus wasn't trying to escape randomly. It was targeting him. The realization struck him like a physical blow. Every system failure, every flicker of light, every mutated scream, it all led back to him. Proteus wasn't just a life form. It was a predator, and Michael was its prey. The organism's glowing mass pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, as though mocking him. He felt a cold sweat break out across his skin as he backed away from the containment chamber, his mind racing. "Why me?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the chaos. Was it because he had discovered it? Or was there something deeper, something about his DNA that made him special? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. If Proteus wanted him specifically, then staying here was suicide. He needed to move, to think, but the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. Could he really leave everyone behind? As the minutes ticked away, Michael wrestled with his conscience. He glanced at the monitors showing the infected team members rampaging through the halls. Their faces were twisted masks of agony and rage, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They weren't human anymore. Whatever Proteus had done to them, it had erased their humanity. And yet, a small part of Michael still hoped for redemption, for some way to reverse the damage. But deep down, he knew it was too late. Proteus didn't leave room for second chances. With no other options left, Michael activated the lab's lockdown protocol, sealing off sections of the facility to slow the spread. Then, gripping a plasma pistol tightly in his hand, he turned toward the exit. Behind him, the hum of Proteus grew louder, more insistent. It wasn't done with him yet. Outside the lab, the crimson sun cast long shadows across the alien landscape. Michael moved cautiously, his breath fogging the visor of his helmet. The air felt heavier here, charged with static electricity that crackled faintly whenever he moved. His heart pounded in his chest, not just from exertion but from the gnawing fear that Proteus was still watching him. Even out here, every step forward felt like walking into a trap. The ground beneath his boots shimmered faintly, as though alive. Strange flora pulsed rhythmically, their movements synchronized with the planet's faint tremors. Michael couldn't shake the feeling that Proxus itself was aware of his presence, reacting to his intrusion. It was as though the entire planet was alive, a single organism connected by invisible threads. But the real terror began when the visions started. At first, they were fleeting flashes, alien landscapes filled with towering crystalline structures, oceans of liquid light, skies streaked with colors beyond human comprehension. Then came the whispers, soft and indistinct at first, growing louder and clearer with each passing moment. They weren't words, not exactly, but emotions conveyed directly into his mind. Curiosity, hunger, fear. Michael staggered, clutching his head as the visions intensified. He saw civilizations rising and falling, stars birthing and dying, entire galaxies consumed by entropy. Proteus had witnessed it all, surviving eons by adapting, evolving, consuming. It wasn't just rewriting DNA, it was rewriting reality itself. And then, suddenly, the vision stopped. Michael found himself standing in front of a massive fissure in the ground, steam rising from its depths. The air smelled acrid, metallic. He peered over the edge, his flashlight revealing a cavernous void below. Something glimmered faintly at the bottom, a pulsing, organic light that seemed to call to him. "No," he muttered, backing away. "This isn't real. It's trying to manipulate me." But the doubt lingered. What if it wasn't manipulation? What if Proteus was offering him insight, a glimpse into truths humanity wasn't ready to understand? The temptation was almost unbearable. Michael sank to his knees, trembling. He had always sought answers, chased mysteries to their core. Now, faced with the ultimate enigma, he wondered if he had the strength to resist. Desperate to regain control, Michael injected himself with a neural suppressant, dulling the connection between his mind and Proteus. The visions faded, but the damage was done. He had glimpsed the truth. Proteus wasn't a life form at all, not in the way humans understood life. It was something ancient, something primal, something that existed long before the first spark of consciousness ignited in the universe. And it was testing him. With less than 30 minutes until the self-destruct sequence completed, Michael faced an impossible choice. He could activate the failsafe and destroy the lab, wiping out Proteus along with everyone inside. Or he could try to reason with the organism, risking everything, including his own sanity, to find another way. He decided to take the risk. Using a neural interface device, Michael linked his mind directly to Proteus. The connection hit him like a tidal wave, flooding his senses with raw data streams and fragmented memories. He saw civilizations rising and falling, stars birthing and dying, entire galaxies consumed by entropy. Proteus had witnessed it all, surviving eons by adapting, evolving, consuming. But there was more. Buried within the torrent of information, Michael found a pattern, a code embedded deep within Proteus's structure. It wasn't random. It was a message. The organism wasn't attacking blindly. It was searching for something or someone capable of understanding its purpose. Michael's heart raced as he deciphered the code. It was a blueprint, a map leading to a hidden vault buried deep beneath Proxus's surface. Whatever lay within might hold the key to controlling Proteus or unleashing its full potential. Time was running out, and Michael knew he couldn't make this decision alone. He contacted Dr. Elena Vega, a xenobiologist stationed nearby, via his communicator. "Elena, I need your help," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "I've found something big. Meet me at these coordinates." He transmitted the map data, praying she would reach him in time. As he waited, Michael fortified his position, setting up traps and barricades to slow the advancing mutants. Each passing minute felt like an eternity. Would Elena arrive in time, or would Proteus overwhelm him before she got there? Elena arrived just as the first wave of mutants reached Michael's location. She moved with precision, her plasma rifle cutting down attackers with ruthless efficiency. Together, they formed a formidable team, fighting side by side as they retreated deeper into the tunnels. Their journey was fraught with peril. Collapsing tunnels forced them to detour through abandoned mining shafts, where they encountered other survivors, some human, some barely recognizable. Trust was a luxury neither could afford. Every step forward brought new challenges, from environmental hazards to ambushes by Proteus-infected creatures. Despite the danger, Michael and Elena forged a fragile alliance. Their shared determination to uncover the truth about Proteus gave them strength, even as the weight of their mission threatened to crush them. Yet, lurking beneath their camaraderie was a growing tension. Elena believed Proteus could be harnessed for good, while Michael feared its power was too great for anyone to control. Their debates often turned heated, especially during rare moments of respite. "We can't destroy it," Elena argued one night as they camped in a makeshift shelter. "Think of the possibilities. We're talking about rewriting biology itself, curing diseases, extending lifespans. This could be the greatest leap forward in human history." "And what happens when it turns on us?" Michael shot back, his voice sharp with frustration. "You saw what it did to Sarah, to everyone else. It doesn't care about us, Elena. It's not benevolent or malevolent. It's survival incarnate. And if we let it loose, it'll consume everything." Elena fell silent, her expression troubled. For the first time, Michael saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. But the resolve quickly returned. "Then we have to learn how to control it," she said firmly. "Because destroying it isn't an option." Michael didn't respond. He knew arguing wouldn't change her mind. Instead, he focused on the path ahead, hoping they'd find answers soon enough to settle the debate once and for all. The descent into Proxus's crust was both a physical and psychological ordeal. Michael and Elena navigated through tunnels that seemed to narrow with each step, their headlamps casting long shadows on jagged walls. The air grew thinner, colder, and carried an acrid tang that burned their lungs. Strange symbols etched into the rock glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the planet's heartbeat-like tremors. It was clear this place predated human exploration by millennia. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere shifted. The silence became oppressive, broken only by the sound of their breathing and the occasional drip of condensation echoing through the caverns. Michael couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every flicker of light, every distant rumble, sent his nerves tingling. He glanced at Elena, whose focused expression masked any fear she might have felt. Her determination was unwavering, but Michael wondered how much longer either of them could endure the mounting tension. Finally, they reached the vault, a cavernous chamber illuminated by crystalline structures that hummed with energy. At its center stood a pedestal, atop which rested a sphere encased in a shimmering force field. The sphere pulsed with the same light as Proteus, confirming Michael's suspicions. This was the source of the organism's intelligence. Elena approached cautiously, her scientific curiosity overriding caution. "This isn't just technology," she whispered, her voice trembling with awe. "It's alive." Before Michael could stop her, she deactivated the force field. The sphere floated into the air, releasing a flood of memories and knowledge directly into their minds. They saw the origins of Proteus, not as a predator, but as a guardian created by an ancient civilization to preserve balance in the universe. But guardianship came at a cost. To maintain equilibrium, Proteus had to consume and transform entire ecosystems, erasing imperfection in favor of perfection. Humanity's presence on Proxus had disrupted this cycle, awakening the organism prematurely. Now it sought to reclaim its role regardless of the consequences. Michael staggered back, overwhelmed by the influx of information. His knees buckled under the weight of centuries' worth of alien knowledge. Elena caught him before he hit the ground, her face pale but resolute. "We can use this," she said urgently. "We can understand it, control it." But Michael wasn't so sure. The vision had shown him not just Proteus's purpose, but its indifference. It didn't care about humanity's survival or suffering. It cared only about maintaining cosmic order. And if humanity stood in the way of that goal, it would be erased without hesitation. Reaching the vault required descending deeper into Proxus's crust than any human had ever gone. The air grew thinner, colder, and tinged with an acrid smell that burned their lungs. Strange symbols etched into the walls glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the planet's heartbeat-like tremors. It was clear this place predated human exploration by millennia. When they finally breached the vault, they found themselves standing in a cavernous chamber filled with crystalline structures that hummed with energy. At the center stood a pedestal, atop which rested a sphere encased in a shimmering force field. The sphere pulsed with the same light as Proteus, confirming Michael's suspicions. This was the source of the organism's intelligence. Elena approached cautiously, her sharp intellect undimmed by the horrors she had witnessed. "This isn't just technology," she whispered. "It's alive." Before Michael could stop her, she deactivated the force field. The sphere floated into the air, releasing a flood of memories and knowledge directly into their minds. They saw the origins of Proteus, not as a predator, but as a guardian created by an ancient civilization to preserve balance in the universe. But there was more. Buried within the torrent of information, Michael found a pattern, a code embedded deep within Proteus's structure. It wasn't random. It was a message. The organism wasn't attacking blindly. It was searching for something or someone capable of understanding its purpose. Michael's heart raced as he deciphered the code. It was a blueprint, a map leading to a hidden vault buried deep beneath Proxus's surface. Whatever lay within might hold the key to controlling Proteus or unleashing its full potential. Time was running out, and Michael knew he couldn't make this decision alone. He turned to Elena, who was still processing the deluge of alien knowledge. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do we destroy it, or do we try to harness it?" Elena hesitated, her eyes reflecting the conflict raging within her. "If we destroy it, we lose everything we've learned," she said finally. "But if we keep it, we risk losing ourselves." Michael nodded grimly. There was no easy answer. Whatever choice they made would define the future, not just of humanity but of countless worlds. When the light faded, Michael found himself alone. Elena was gone, presumably consumed by Proteus. The vault lay in ruins, its crystalline structures shattered and lifeless. Yet, amidst the devastation, Michael noticed something unexpected. Fragments of the sphere remained intact, their glow weaker but still present. Proteus hadn't destroyed him. Instead, it had left behind a fragment of itself, a seed containing the essence of its power. Michael realized this was both a gift and a curse. By sparing him, Proteus had entrusted him with a responsibility greater than any he had ever faced. Whether he chose to use the seed for good or ill would determine the fate of countless worlds. Clutching the fragment tightly, Michael staggered back toward the surface. Behind him, the self-destruct sequence reached its final moments. Explosions rocked the tunnels, collapsing the entrance and sealing Proteus's tomb once again. As he emerged into the crimson sunlight, Michael knew his journey was far from over. The real battle had only just begun. The survivors greeted him with a mixture of relief and suspicion. Some saw him as a hero. Others viewed him as a harbinger of doom. Michael didn't blame them. He carried the weight of Proteus's legacy and its potential in his hands. For now, he kept the fragment hidden, knowing that revealing it too soon could spark panic or greed. But as he looked out over the alien landscape, Michael felt a strange sense of clarity. Proteus wasn't evil, nor was it benevolent. It simply existed, driven by instincts older than time itself. Humanity's challenge wasn't to conquer it, but to coexist with it or perish trying. Returning to the surface was bittersweet. The lab was gone, reduced to rubble by the detonation. Survivors wandered aimlessly, their faces hollow with shock and grief. Among them, Michael searched for signs of hope. Despite the devastation, small acts of resilience reminded him why humanity had endured for so long. Compassion, ingenuity, and an unyielding will to survive. Word of Proteus's existence spread quickly, sparking debates among the remaining scientists and leaders. Some called for immediate evacuation, fearing another outbreak. Others advocated studying the fragment Michael had salvaged, arguing it held answers to questions humanity had pondered for centuries. Tensions ran high, threatening to fracture the group further. Michael threw himself into rebuilding efforts, channeling his guilt and grief into action. He established a makeshift clinic to treat the injured, organized supply runs to gather resources, and worked tirelessly to restore basic infrastructure. Yet, whenever he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of Proteus's visions, the endless cycle of creation and destruction, the inevitability of change. The fragment pulsed faintly in its containment unit, a constant reminder of the power he now wielded. Michael knew he couldn't keep it hidden forever. Sooner or later, others would demand answers and accountability. One evening, as he reviewed data logs in the dim light of a portable generator, Michael heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see Dr. Elena Vega, alive but changed. Her eyes glowed faintly, and her movements were unnaturally fluid. "I'm still here," she said softly, "but I'm not the same." Michael stared at her, torn between relief and dread. Had Proteus spared her, or corrupted her? And what did her survival mean for the rest of them? As days turned into weeks, cracks began forming in the fragile unity of the survivors. Rumors spread about the fragment's true nature, fueling paranoia and distrust. Some accused Michael of hoarding knowledge for personal gain, while others viewed the fragment as a divine artifact sent to guide humanity toward evolution. Amidst the chaos, Michael received a cryptic message from an unknown sender. "You don't understand what you've unleashed." The words haunted him, echoing the doubts he tried to suppress. Had he made the right choice by saving the fragment? Or had he doomed them all by refusing to let Proteus die? To complicate matters, a faction of survivors led by a charismatic engineer named Victor Kane demanded access to the fragment. Kane believed it could be weaponized to protect humanity from future threats. Michael refused, knowing such attempts would only invite disaster. But Kane wasn't willing to back down, and tensions escalated into outright conflict. One night, as Michael monitored the fragment's activity, intruders breached the clinic. They subdued him and seized the containment unit, disappearing into the wilderness before reinforcements could arrive. Without the fragment, Michael felt exposed, vulnerable. He realized that protecting it meant sacrificing everything, including his freedom. Determined to retrieve the fragment, Michael set out across Proxus's treacherous terrain. Armed with little more than determination and a few scavenged supplies, he tracked Kane's group to a remote outpost nestled in the shadow of jagged cliffs. The journey tested his limits, pushing him to confront fears he had long buried. At the outpost, Michael discovered that Kane had already begun experimenting with the fragment. Machines hummed with stolen energy, powering devices designed to amplify the fragment's effects. Test subjects, volunteers lured by promises of immortality, lay comatose, their bodies racked with mutations. Kane's obsession had spiraled out of control, turning the outpost into a nightmare realm of twisted science. Confronting Kane, Michael pleaded for reason, warning of the catastrophic consequences awaiting them if they continued tampering with forces they didn't fully understand. But Kane dismissed his concerns, blinded by ambition. "We're gods now," he declared, holding the fragment aloft. "Why should we fear anything?" Before Michael could respond, Proteus's presence surged through the fragment, overwhelming everyone in the room. The organism's voice thundered in their minds, a mix of anger and sorrow. It had tolerated humanity's interference for long enough. Now it demanded resolution. In the ensuing chaos, Michael managed to reclaim the fragment, severing Kane's connection to Proteus. But the damage was done. The outpost collapsed into ruin, its occupants either dead or driven mad by the fragment's influence. Michael barely escaped with his life, carrying the burden of failure and loss. Back at the settlement, he convened a council of survivors to discuss the future. The debate raged fiercely, splitting the group into factions. Some argued for destroying the fragment once and for all, while others insisted it represented humanity's last chance at redemption. Michael listened silently, weighing the arguments carefully. Ultimately, he proposed a compromise. Seal the fragment in a secure vault and dedicate their efforts to understanding its secrets without exploiting them. It was a risky plan, requiring trust and cooperation in a fractured community. But Michael believed it was the only path forward. If they worked together, they might find a way to coexist with Proteus rather than fight against it. As the council deliberated, Michael reflected on his journey. He had faced unimaginable horrors, made impossible choices, and carried the weight of billions on his shoulders. Yet, despite everything, he still clung to hope. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest strength or its fatal flaw. Months passed, and slowly, the settlement began to heal. The fragment remained sealed, its secrets guarded by strict protocols and vigilant oversight. Scientists studied its properties cautiously, learning to harness its energy without triggering catastrophic side effects. Though progress was slow, the sense of purpose united the survivors in ways Michael hadn't anticipated. One evening, as he gazed at the crimson sky, Michael felt a pang of nostalgia. He missed Earth, the familiar rhythms of home. But Proxus had become his world now, a place where humanity's resilience shone brightest in the face of adversity. The fragment pulsed faintly in its vault, a silent reminder of the delicate balance they maintained. Proteus hadn't been defeated, nor had it been tamed. It simply waited, patient and eternal. And perhaps that was enough for now. If you enjoyed this thrilling sci-fi adventure, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that push the boundaries of imagination. Hit the notification bell to stay updated, and join us on this journey into the unknown. Your support makes these tales possible.